Okay, so today's video, I'm going to work on this page. I've just broke it down into 4 sections. I've got my thumbnail drawings from that original video where I worked out the composition I want to go with and the like the value of what do I want to say? The value of focus for my characters and stuff in the scene. Today, without drawing anything in pencil, I'm going to work on kind of roughly painting this thing 4 times with the watercolor to create the general look and feel that I want to get in this picture. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got my Crayolas. I've got them all kind of wet, like 4 drops of water in every little cake there. Got my 2 cups of water over here just off camera. And I'm going to start with my nice big number 12 round. Oh, actually, I might start, I'm thinking. Yeah, we're going to start with 12 round. And so I'm just going to start with the idea that this is generally it's a night scene. So let me get my brush wet here. Not soaked, just wet. Actually, yeah, maybe I do want to soak it. And let's lay in the sky. The biggest challenge with the sky is that I want to have the night, or the North Star in the sky. And so that would be a bright point, but if I lay in a wash, it's going to be kind of hard to do that. Although, I mean, I don't know. If I use, I've seen a lot of people use gouache paint. I believe that's how you say it. Because it is more opaque, it will go over the watercolor, and you can create white with that, where watercolor white it's like a really runny, nasty kind of thing. Alright, so I'm just creating a wash here, and I want to soak this in. I'd like to keep it as light as possible. So right now it's going to look like a bright daytime sky. So this is just like the very base color that I want to put in. I'm not going to worry too much about making it like super tidy. I just want to make it reasonably good here. So these are, essentially this page is going to be 4 different thumbnail paintings, although they're clearly a lot bigger than a thumbnail. But they're not nearly as big as what the final painting will be. So I think for right now, let's just lay in the basic colors of everything that I'm going to put in this scene. And do it fairly lightly. Let me get this brush clean from the blue. And now I'm going to use, I'm going to use brown. I'm only going to take a little tiny bit of brown, I think. I want to just spread this really lightly. So it's kind of a, this brown can get very dark, but because it's watercolor, it can, if you lay it down really thin with some water, it can be a very light sandy type brown. And since this takes place in the desert, I definitely want that sandy brown color. I think I want a little bit more. And now when I do my final painting, I will probably tape it down to the table so that this warping doesn't occur nearly as badly. Okay. So now we've got this basic, very, very basic thing going on. And I'm looking to see how wet this is. I think it's within reason. Let me try. Okay. This is the roof of the stable that we're going to do. So I'm just kind of laying that one in with the darker brown right here. Right now I'm not really worried about the values and depth as much as just getting the color on it. And I'm not worried about details yet either. Okay, so that's our little building. Let me wet my brush fairly decent here and then pick up just a dab of color. Let's try to make this bit right here a little more visually interesting without overdoing it too much. Okay. All right. Now, I know that inside the manger area is going to be dark as well, but I want to get the characters and stuff in there first. So let's go ahead right now. For right now, I'm going to focus on the sky. Now that I've established that horizon line and the variation between the stable and the sky. And as I said before, we're going to want to have the North Star in there. So I'm going to go ahead and try something here. I'm going to switch to my number 2 round. Get him kind of wet. And my white paint has been very polluted with purple and blue, so my white's not necessarily going to come out white, but it might be white-ish. And let's see, so I want my North Star to be like right here. I'm working almost purely with water here, so it's going to be kind of unstable. So the mix of the water and the curvature I've already gotten this paper from the water in the paper is not making that very easy to work with. But okay, there's a North Star. It's kind of there. You can kind of see it. That's good enough for now. And it's very soaked, so it's definitely going to have to dry before I can do anything further with it. I'm going to put the number 2 away. I'm going to go to the number 6. And I'm going to deepen the sky in a bit. Going in with making it more nighttime-like. So now I am going to load up some dark blue. And I'm going to lay this dark blue in. I'm just going to kind of create the shape that I want right here. And I'm just going to slop it in here. Now I'm going to get some water. So this is actually very, very dry at the moment. Or at least relatively dry, given that it's watercolor. So I'm just working on bringing this in. I want to keep these hard edges that I made from drying too quickly, because otherwise they will be those kind of hard edges that I can't do anything with. Alright. here. Basically what I'm creating right now is the difference between the light blue and the dark blue to make it look like that star, which you can barely see right now, is actually, so it makes it look like that is actually creating light in the sky. And let me fluff this edge some more so that it does not dry as a hard defined edge. Do a bit here. I'll do this side here. And so basically, I am taking this down, clearing the paint out of my brush, getting more water, and just kind of working it in so that I get more of this gradient from the dark blue to the light blue as we get closer to the star. And I'm trying to keep it from building too hard of an edge as I do that. And now we are right up against the star. So now let me work this backwards a little bit. And as you can see, there's not nearly as much pigment back there as there is over here. So I'm just messing this around a little bit and bring some of that pigment over here. So it's given kind of a cloudy, blurry effect so far. And let's try to create a better transition. I don't want to really have that like 2 or 3 step transition look. I want to try to keep it natural looking, not like it's just a process. Okay. I think I hear my wife upstairs recording a cooking video for her kids. I believe she's making deviled eggs today for Thanksgiving. Okay, so that's the sky laid in, and I think that's looking pretty good. That the transition from the star out to the dark blue there, which I'm going to take that even darker before we're done. But that's for now. I want to let that dry a bit. And I don't want to put a palm tree in there right now because it's also too wet for that. So let's go, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with my number 6 for the moment. And now I'm just going to completely fluff the things because I'm not doing detailed drawings in here just yet. I'm going to go with yellow for the baby Jesus. And the reason I'm going with yellow is because it's kind of the brightest color I've got. And working with this brown, that kind of creates a golden yellow color, which would have a value-wise or chromatic-wise, this is going to be like the brightest part of the image. Your focus is going to be here with Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and then everything else is at least secondary or further back in relevance. So going with the simple punching bag type shapes that I had in the thumbnail, that's Mary leaning over Jesus, and this is Joseph leaning against Mary and looking over, Jesus. And by the time I get to the real thing, it is going to be actual characters, and it's going to be as realistic as I can do it in watercolor. This is, like I said, this is just for, what do you call it? The practice of establishing the focus, establishing some general color that I'm going to use in the picture. All right. Now I've got the secondary things in my picture. So where I've got the yellow here, that's Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. They are the number one things. I mean, then of course the details of the setting kind of count in that. Secondary things are going to be the three wise men, their gifts, and the star. And even in this picture, I'm not going to really worry about putting their gifts in. But since they are secondary and we've established yellow as the primary, let's go with, I'm going to go with, like, orange. Yeah, I'm going to go with some pale orange. And I'm going to say, let's see, just going by my drawing to try to get some general shape here. So my three wise men are all kind of, they're bowing down and presenting gifts. So a little bit more complicated than the punching bag shape, but not much more. So essentially that's a head, that's an arm, this is his robes coming back, and there's three of them standing here. So I have a second one who is maybe hunched a little bit less. And he's kind of right here. And then the third one might even be, he might even kind of tuck in at the rear and be kind of visible around here. So not too detailed, just kind of some simple shapes to suggest what I'm doing here. And then, let's see, and I'm not going to go with orange for the star. Although, no, because that'll mess everything up. We're only dealing with watercolor here. Then the shepherds are third. So for the shepherds, I'm going to use a darker orange. And the shepherds are very similar to the three wise men. They're kind of in here with their heads bowed, and so that's a head. And let's see, here's basically shepherd. Maybe their hands stick out and they've got their staves with the little candy cane hook at the tip of them. And I was experimenting quite a bit in the thumbnail stage of whether I wanted those hooks to actually hook towards or away from Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And sometimes I would do things and they would look kind of, sinister, like they were there to attack. So there's little things that visually I had to be careful of because they gave off the wrong impression. Alright, so I've got two, and I was going to throw a third one in. Let's bring him in like all the way here. See if I can make him stand out a little bit. So he'll be even more kneeling down, and his staff might even come all the way over to here. So I still have not actually fully worked out all the details of what their costumes look like, or not necessarily costumes, but what their clothing looks like, their facial features or anything like that. Just so far I'm just worrying about establishing the very basics of the picture. And now I have the last important thing in my painting, because this is the focus, starting here and then working outward. The last important things in my picture are going to be the animals and the angel. So I'm going to have an angel up here, actually on the roof or in the sky, which now that I'm thinking about it, probably in the sky would be even better than on the roof. So because on the roof it might even kind of look like a gargoyle hanging on the roof, if especially if I'm not making it pop out like it's the most important thing. So let's go with And this is probably going to be a little bit weird. Well, actually, I'm going to try, and this is not going to work out very greatly, but it should do something. I'm going to use white to rough in these animals. Well, my purple white. Eventually, I might end up working all that other color out of my white. And so I have one lamb that's right here. Oh, look at that, just big white glob. Okay. Anyway, that's a lamb. And then here's another lamb. And so I've gone from giant glob to like nothing. So let me just borrow that. Alright. And I was putting another lamb actually out here. Okay, and so they're all like laying down. So that's why they're kind of small. I think this is about the right scale for them. And last night I did print out all my reference photos that I'd pulled off the internet. I put them together in Photoshop so that I have reference sheets for the three wise men, the shepherds, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, and sheep, and oxen, and a mule, and camels. And I've got references for everything, including the building itself. So the building itself is going to change a little bit more from what it looks like here. Alright, this is a little bit dry. Let me go ahead and try to lay more white into this star. Okay. So actually that star's starting to pop out a little bit now. But that's also heavily loaded with white. It's probably going to dry up a bit and soak down in there and disappear again. Just like my sheep seem to be disappearing down here. But that's not really that big of a deal at this point. Now I have, because the white's not going to work out, not seriously, I'm going to try, well actually I'm going to stick with white, and I'm going to lay on top of it afterward. So, right back here between Mary and Joseph, or between Joseph and the shepherds, I have an ox in the stable back behind everybody. So here's his big head, and ox have horns. So I'm giving him his horns right here. It's kind of like a cow, but I mean not really the same. And then it's got shoulders and a body, and so that's good enough for right now. Next, over here by Mary, I was putting the mule. I'm not as familiar with the story as some people, so I was told that she arrived here on a mule. And I have seen the mule in other paintings, so I'm just gonna put its head here. Right now it's kind of similar in size to the ox, which is probably not even remotely accurate. And then lastly, I went ahead in my drawing, I'm stabling the three camels inside with everybody else, because that way they aren't just added to the rest of like the background and throwing things out of balance. So I'm just giving you big camel heads right here. Three camels interested in what's going on. And they have their long long camel necks, and then their camel bodies, and of course this white is just going to fade out anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, but that should leave me at least something to work with. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and throw that angel in with the white. Let's just say, I'm going to go with, this is a head, this is the body, and legs, and arms, and then big bird wings, which should probably be more rounded than that, because those, they kind of look like demon wings. Bet you can't tell what I usually draw. Oh boy. And I don't want her to stand out too much, because she's not the most important thing to this picture, but important enough that if you're spending the time to look, you should see it. Now it's starting to look almost like the, I think the Red Cross or the Blue Cross logo, the little swirly thing. Okay, that's good enough. So I do like that the way that it's faded out. This white has faded out into that blue, because that makes it, although you notice it, it doesn't just pop out immediately as the first thing you see right now. So I will probably, in the actual painting, I will probably shadow, like any shadows that this angel has, will probably be the blue of the sky, to help keep it with that kind of ethereal look and keep it pushed back into the background. Let's see, so now the sky has dried up a little bit. I think I'm ready to saturate it with some purple. Actually, I've got, looks like I might have two different purples in this tray. I've not actually played with every color that I have here in this little 16 color Crayola set. So, going with the way things seem to have been laid out so far, we're going to say that this is like a light purple, and we're going to try it first. And so I'm going to just kind of go ahead and knock this right in there. And then I'm going to put some more of it like right over here. And now I'm just grabbing water to help spread this. Definitely don't want to have the hard edges, as I mentioned before. So I spread it a little bit into a shape, and then like I kind of let it dry a little bit, but I grab more water and then I spread it again to help try to push that transition of colors in a soft manner. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to take a chance here. I mean, this is just the experimental stuff, and I think this will work. So we're going to say, I mean, in this painting, technically, the only light in the sky would be this North Star. As far as the people are concerned, Jesus is the light source in this painting. That adds to kind of like the mystical, spiritual being element that we want to convey in this particular painting. But I'm going to go with my darker purple. I don't really want to have it too saturated. I'm just kind of going to lay that in over here. Clear off most of it because I don't want to overdo it too fast. So now it's just mostly water. And I am just adding some shadow to this sand dune back here to help give it some depth. And I'm going to do just a bit more over here. Grab some more water. And I think I'm ready to lay in my palm tree, which I kind of added in the thumbnail. So let's say, okay, that's too wet still. So what I just laid in there was probably going to become almost completely unnoticeable. And I notice here this is just looking dirty. So this purple pigment has kind of splattered out with all that water. It's not holding together at all. So I'm going to lay some more in here. Because although that technically, I mean, sand dune is kind of a dirty surface, that's not exactly the look I was going for. Now, I'm not sure. I think that is happening because these are just Crayolas. But until I actually break out some of my more expensive stuff and start working with that, I won't really know for sure. Now, I'm going to kind of keep laying in value here for a moment. Oh, you know what I want? I want to get more of a hard edge right there. To help show that sudden transition that you get with hard edges of like where the sand piles up at one point and then just quickly starts falling off to the other side. Okay. I mean, I've got a little bit of, I got the color there going on in the background. You've got the angel up there. Got this going on. I think it's time to start bringing in a little bit of visual interest within the actual nativity. Because right now, the only reason it's actually looking like it, the only reason it really catches your eye is because it is the brightest point, and it's kind of balancing between the star and the nativity. So, let's see, I've got this layout that I'm doing on the inside for the stables and everything. So we're going to go back to brown. And I'm going to kind of add this stuff in right behind the characters. So I'm going with about this height. Okay, some of that seems like it wants to take off. That's okay. Let me give it a little bit more thickness here. So this is like the top rail of the, what do you call them? Like the stable gates or doors or whatever, where the animals are, the pen doors, or I don't know, whatever it is. Alright. And so this would be the bottom rail. Okay, and there's actually a support beam here, and a support beam here. I put a central divider in which is actually running right here between Mary and Joseph. That's just in the background. And then a divider here that keeps the camel separate from the mule, and a divider over here, which if I really wanted to tidy this up, I guess I could take these sheep and jam them in that back bin right there. And I could even cut this down a little bit more narrow, but I think I like having the sand dunes and the star and everything. I want to keep the, what do you call it, the location that we've established. I do want to keep that right now. I don't think we want to pull that out of the painting at all. So then these are just little details that I'm putting in for like the actual gates in this back area. Let's see. And I don't want to overdo it right like on top of the Wiseman or anything. Little X gates. Like, I know I see those out west. I don't know if that's a common thing, like in the East or whatever, anywhere that they would use wood in the Middle East even. Let's see. And so that's laid in. And I'm going to go ahead and deepen the outer posts of this place. These are actually going to be stone instead of the brown that makes it look like they might be wood. I'm just kind of going to create some shapes here. So these pillars that I've got, or the legs holding the structure up, they are stone. The little support beams that I've got running angular here and here, those are wood. The stuff in the back is wood, but these pillars might also be stone. This is the one thing about that I believe about the Middle East from what I've seen in pictures and looking into things, is that there's not a lot of wood. I mean, it is a desert, so it's not like they have trees growing everywhere to have wood, especially back in these times when, there wasn't a whole lot of trucking industry back in Jesus's day. I mean, I'm sure there was some transport and river transport and whatever they had, but you weren't just going to go down to 84 Lumber and buy a bunch of lumber to build your stables. Okay, so I've got that all laid in, making my usual mess. I'm going to take a little break and have some coffee and let this dry for a little bit. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to see if I can make this little painting look kind of neat. Or make it look decent before we move on to the others. Okay, so we are back. I've let this paint dry for a little bit to see if we can maybe add a little bit more depth to this little painting. So let's start with the sky. So obviously I want this sky to be even darker, and I'm not sure what I put into it last, but I'm going to go with this blue violet color over here. We're going to try this. So I'm going to put a hard line of it right here. I think that might be the last color I actually used. And a hard line there. I'm going to wet my brush. And we're going to spread it out. And wet my brush again. And spread some more. Okay, and then I get down here in the bottom. Got my wet brush. I'm spreading this paint. And basically laying in kind of a wash area with the water that's in my brush for where I want that paint to go to. And just kind of working it around. Okay. So that's added a little bit more depth to the sky, a little bit more darkness there. I'm going to do some more here on the sand dune. I'm going to go to my darker purple, and I want to grab just a little bit and try not to be too watery. So I want to put a nice hard edge in here. I think I need a little bit more of it. So I'm trying to stay at the edge of my puddle in there and grab just as much of it as pigment as I can. And maybe pull it just a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to do a little bit of that right here with what's left in my brush. And I'm just going to spread that around. Okay. Now, this support beam up here, it kind of went a little bit wonky on me. I think I had too much water in my brush or too much something, and it spread out like that. So my next step here, let's just go ahead and add black. I want to kind of define some of these characters with like a hard black silhouette or shadow area. Or actually, let's go with brown first. Brown would probably be the wiser choice. So let me clean my big brush. I'm definitely not going to use, well, this is only my medium. Let me go to my small brush, my little number 2 round. Let me get it wet or kind of clean it out a little bit. So we're going to go with brown. And I don't want to take too much brown or too much water because I want these lines to come off somewhat smoothly and not spread too much. And they're going to spread a little bit, and that's okay. Because right now I'm adding what is essentially just a little bit of darker shadow area and kind of creating the form of the character, where some things are more catching more of the light while others are not. Okay. And it doesn't do a lot for the form right there, but it does a little bit, and that little bit is going to be useful. I may have overdone this a little bit. And now inside here, as I mentioned before, basically Jesus is the light source. So these guys are dark back here, and these guys are going to be dark back here along the back edge. We're going to start with the kneeling guy. You can't even really see the back of him anymore because all that orange has kind of bled together. And let's see, so we're going to say his shoulder is like right here. And his elbow. And let's see, so he's going to be kind of heavily in shadow right here. And then his leg is kind of bent right here, so this would also be shadowy. And there would be something going on here to show that his leg is bent. So, you know, like let's say this is his pelvis, and then his knee would be here, and his leg comes down. Just very, very simple, suggestive work right now. I think I do kind of want to spread this brown a little bit, have it softer, not nearly so hard. And especially right here, I want to get a little bit more variation. Okay, and I'm going to put a little bit right here where essentially his head would kind of end and come into his body. Now we're going to do this again for the next shepherd. So I'm coming along the back edge of him. Like, if he's got a hood or whatever, it's going to end right here. And leave this shadow, this arm is coming downward, casting shadow along the back towards, where his abs or his torso and his hips are. Maybe there would be a little bit here for separating the arm itself. Okay. Now, let's see. So this front guy, okay, so his staff is running here, and as you can see, his staff kind of bled into the background, or the background bled into his staff, which, working this small, it's kind of expected. So right now I'm just outlining. Ooh, I got way too much paint that time. There's like a big glob on there. So this is just the darker side of the staff, so they kind of look like they have that form to them. Okay. So now I've got basically 3 orange Jawas out here. Is what they kind of look like at this point. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do the same thing. But this time I'm not going to go with brown. I'm going to use, let's use my light orange. I'm going to try taking this very gently instead of pushing it too hard and too fast. So I'm using my light orange, trying to get the water globs and paint globs off my brush, so I'm going nice and smooth. So this is Joseph, and he's kind of leaning in with Mary. So this is kind of his shadow side, and let's see, his arm comes in like so, and he might even be kind of crouched like so. So this would be his hips, up to his knees would be in here, and his leg comes down. And then Mary would be here. Let's see. We'll give her this kind of flowy thing here for her hair. Down to like where her hips are, and then maybe her feet are coming along right here. And this is the underside of the basket. Okay, light orange. I need some more paint, but not too much. And let's see, and of course I've got that bleed there from the brown. Let's see, and so let's say her arm is coming in like right along here. And maybe there's a little bit of shadow there. Maybe I'll keep a little bit of shadow here. And just kind of tie both of them together right there in the middle around the basket. Or whatever. Now let me grab some water and make this stuff spread. And let's see, I'm going to keep this a little bit dark here. Right. Just kind of laying in some lighter orange here where I'm spreading it around and kind of knocking down that yellow, so that it's not just yellow here. Okay, and then the basket itself here. Spread this color some more. I definitely want to knock some of that out back there. Okay. And obviously my little white blobs for the animals are not showing through very well. So, let me stick with this light orange. And I'm going to try to suggest the dark side of the camels. So, like, and they're just going to be very simple right here. That beam kind of gets in the way. The camels have humps. Okay, and then maybe a dark spot here. They're kind of like almost stick figure camels here. Just want to do enough here to suggest that they are back there. And obviously I'm already seeing they're not really done very well or to scale, but it's gonna work for this, I think, as far as just kind of establishing that they are there. Okay. Then back here, as I said, I had the mule, which he's gonna get, I'm gonna do this darker orange. So I have like a darker orange and more of a red orange. I'm gonna go with the darker orange, but I want to keep it kind of diluted. And let's go with more of a kind of like a V shape here. And let's see. I think that'll do for suggesting that mule for now. And then for the ox, oxen are usually kind of white and brownish. So I think I'm going to go with brown for that one. I'm going to try to do this fairly gently here. And then, of course, they are big, massive creatures. They tow things around. And so I'm just kind of laying this brownish value in here, or color. A little bit of brown for his horns to help show them off. Okay, so that vaguely, very, very vaguely resembles a cow. Or at least a cow skull. Alright. And then sheep. Well, sheep are kind of the same. Just a lot smaller and a lot fluffier. So we're just going to gently lay in some brown here and some brown here. I mean, these guys, I'm not even worried about trying to make them look like sheep in this version. I don't usually do animals, and definitely I usually don't do sheep. So I've got no real like experience doing them to just quickly nail out something that kind of looks like a sheep. But that's why I have reference for the actual painting that I'm gonna do in the end. Okay, my brown has become far too diluted over here. At this point I'm going to be laying kind of a wash. And so, the I think the general look that you're getting at this moment, right here where Mary, Joseph, and Jesus are, it kind of looks like a fire. That's the warmest, brightest part of the whole thing. The star up here is creating a cold blue kind of look. The angel is practically non-existent up there, but there's enough to make it look ghostly. I mean, everything looks warm. It's like there's a blazing fire right here in the center. It's kind of the color scheme I want to go for, but that light itself is actually emitting from the baby Jesus for the whole painting. Now, this stuff, it's the stable or the manger is darker as we get back into the deeper areas here. So what I'm going to try to do real quick is just kind of lay in a brown wash to kind of darken this area in. So right now I've just got dirty water, dirty brown water, going around the stuff that I've painted. Basically, the lighter and less wet you paint, the less the stuff will bleed into each other. Of course, as you keep adding water and paint, it wants to mix and mingle and go everywhere. So I've got to be very careful not to overdo it really fast. Okay, this should be bleeding a good bit to create this darker look that I want to get. And it's basically just a brown gradient going from the darkest up here at the roof to slightly lighter where the animal is. I'm going to do this section over here. Then I'm going to go back and do where the camels are and then where the ox is, because I figure, I'm going to try to keep everything from bleeding. So just kind of working one area at a time and trying not to overdo it. Because I don't want to bleed everything together all at once. Adding a little bit of paint, going up here. I think I may have used a bit more water this time. I'm just gently working around my shepherds. Okay, I think I have spread that paint fairly well and the water. Getting some more brown, coming across the top good and heavy, and then bringing it down and letting it bleed out. I'm thinking I might want to go one more time at the top and just bring it in a little bit. Okay, heavy brown. Okay, and then I want to go back here, that little angle in the corner, that's behind the beam that's there. So now let's go over here and do the camel area. Kind of shaking some of the water out of my brush, because I know if I get too wet over here, which I may have anyway, it's really gonna bleed those camels out, which I know they kind of look like a mix between horses and giraffes. They're kind of weird, and not weird like a normal camel would look. Okay, so I think I overdid it, but let's see what we can do. Put some more in here. Okay, so that went a lot quicker than I really wanted to make it go, but it's working. it looks like. So at least now you're starting to see that those animals are separating from the background. And now we're going to do right here where the ox is. Okay, let's give this a shot and see what happens. Heavy black across the top. And it's bleeding good. I'm just kind of trying to level it out before I spread it. Okay. And I do think that probably, given the way that things were working out for me here, I'm probably going to have to go pick up a bottle of white gouache for going back in and highlighting, because I have a feeling I'm going to screw this up a little bit, and that's going to be a good thing to have for putting some white back into the picture after I'm done. So that'll be something for me to think about doing while I'm out today. I gotta go run some errands here soon. Let's see. Alright. Now I'm going to lay a little bit more brown in across the ground inside the stable to help create the impression that it is like darker in there. I want to do just a little bit. I don't want to have a big flood like I did earlier with that background area. And of course this ground does not have to be perfectly smooth. It should have some kind of miscellaneous texture to it. Okay, we're getting there. It's a little darker there. Dry brushing right here. Make it a little bit more. Now I'm dry brushing again. So I'm ending up dry brushing because I'm trying not to overdo the water or the paint in this area. As long as you don't let that dry completely, you can still kind of work on it with water and spread it out and have light tones. Now I'm going to really get my brush wet and just kind of plop it right in here. Because I want to get that stuff activated and spread. And the same thing over here. Okay. And now, let's see, what else can I do? And as I said, I was going to go with black, but I'm glad I didn't jump right into black because this is giving it a little bit more depth. But now I think I will go ahead and do some black work here. So, coming into the wise men, just very small black areas to accentuate the shapes that I want to get here. Do a little bit here, do a bit right there. Get my brush a little bit wetter here. I don't want to like over overdo it and have it bleed out again, but I also don't want to be completely dry brushing. So let's add a little bit of black along here, and then just a bit right here to help separate the three guys from each other. So this is 1, this is 2, and this is actually 3 back here. Wash this out a little bit. And I'm going to go back to brown. So I'm putting in some brown right here to help distinguish between the wise man and the mule. Okay. And then I'm just going to soften this a little bit. I know that it's still very representative and it's not necessarily a detailed painting, but we are beginning to be able to see some figures and some forms, and I think I'm going to stick with brown. I'm going to do the same thing over here with the shepherds. I'm going to just kind of, instead of going straight to black, I'm going to deepen their shadows a little bit more with the brown. And I don't know, I'm starting to think that when I get to, which is going to be soon, I'm going to be actually doing the painting, I might just go ahead and jump right into using the liquid watercolors and mixing them in my proper palette so that I don't have to, so I'm not limited to these little cakes and the colors that I already have here, because it is actually I did do some blending with these palette color, or these cake colors, using the lid, and it was a mess. I mean, it worked, but it was a mess. It was not the best thing. So I think I will use my palette and use the liquid watercolors and make the colors I need for defining the forms and stuff in the big painting. That should lead to a much better, more professional result that works well with the detailed drawing that I'm going to do. And I've already got requests from some of my Patreon members that they want access to the drawing itself instead of just the painting. So I will be, I guess when I do draw the when I draw the sketch out that I'm going to paint, I will scan that so that there is a digital copy available on my Patreon that you could download, color it in with whatever medium, if you want to print it out or paint it or whatever you want to do with it. Even have just a line art poster. So that's one more thing that's going to be coming on my Patreon because it was requested. Okay. And just for let's give Mary some hair so that you can tell who's who here. So I'm just giving her brown hair. As you can see, there is a lot of brown in this picture. And I do like that even just with the one brown that I'm using, and it's by kind of like varying the amount of water in it, I'm able to create these different tones. And here's Joseph. We'll give him some shorter brown hair, maybe a little beard. So now I'm just gonna go stylized, sort of, just plopping that in there. I'll grab more brown. So I've got more brown and less water for a darker brown color. That adds a little bit more depth and form. And don't think I'm going to bother going as far as putting eyes on them in this particular painting. Like I said, this is just a practice, and I'm liking the way it went. I think this has a very good vibe going for it right now. The things I've done is that the sky is still too blue, and I want to do a little bit more with that angel. So, cleaned my brush out. Let's grab some white and pop some highlights out on that angel. So I've got some good thick white here. It's like pasty white. The star's looking pretty good. I'm just going to kind of puff out some stuff here on the angel. And we will see how this works out. Okay, and remember, I had her arms coming out. I assume it's a her. I could make it a male angel, but I think I'll just go with the female. And then, okay. Do a little bit more here. Now I'm getting into kind of an uncomfortable position with the holding my hand over the painting and trying to stroke this white out. Okay. And as I mentioned before, I don't want the angel to pop too far or too hard against the backdrop. So let's add a little bit of water here. Okay, that's more than a little bit, but I want to kind of soften everything up right here. There should not be a really high amount of contrast in this angel, because it's not going to be the focal point of the picture. It's just an element that's kind of important, but I think in my hierarchy that I'm doing, it's like number 3. But I will pop a little bit more white in over here on this edge, and a little bit here, a little bit here. I think that's pretty good. Alright. Okay, and that's dirty. I'm getting blue and white. Just to be expected. So remember, your watercolor will always reactivate at some level. You gotta be careful of that. So even though it's been a little while since I laid the blue in right there where the angel is, I was still picking up blue while I was painting there. And so anywhere I go here, I will be picking up some of that local color. Try grabbing just a touch of white here. Okay. Alright. And let me do something, so a little bit of an experiment here. I'm going to add black to these pillars, just a little bit in certain areas. If you recall, I wanted to make these more like stone, but of course they would be more like, they'd be like sandstone, which is kind of one of the big materials of the region. But so I'm putting this black in to separate like blocks. Rinse out my brush again and squeegee it out a little bit. And now I'm going to use white. Yes. Oh, thank you. Okay, so my wife has made me some gingerbread cake, and I will have to take a break very soon. Alright, so I am definitely dirtying this up. The black has taken off with the white, which it's giving me, it's a stone look, not necessarily sandstone. The sandstone would be more yellowish, but I'm good. This is just fine. So let me dip into the black a little bit right here. And I will let the black kind of flow into the white, and we will see what we get here. So this side seems to have dried off a little bit faster than the other side. Now rinse out my brush. And so I've got just water, and now I'm just spreading to muddy this up and spread it around. And then just water still, going into the background. Okay. And I think that for everything I was trying to achieve in this picture, it's done. I mean, as far as this particular one is concerned. I mean, we've got all the characters in place. We've got some fairly decent flow to it. The only thing, like I said, that sky is still way too bright. So I'm going to go back to my number 6. My number 6 round brush. And so I had used the light purple, and I'm going to try this purple now instead. And I'm taking a lot of it. And laying that on there. So that's some good, thick, heavy, dark purple. And then bring it across here. And up. And I'm going to bring some of it in right here. Okay, now I'm picking up water. And I'm giving this dark purple some place to go. I'll pick up more water. And give this dark purple some place to go. And I'm going to round this off right here around the angel and spread this if I can. And I get more water and round this off and spread it. So I don't think I really want to go to black in the sky. I think that saturated purple at the very base is about as much as I really want to get. me grab some more water and saturate this with water. Okay. And grab more water. So I'm just grabbing water and then working it out kind of like one section at a time. I'm not going to worry too much about tapping where the angel is. I'm just going to try not to go too far into it. I think I need more water. I'm going to tap this right here. So theoretically, I'm hoping this will create a better blend between all those different tones. As we get closer and closer to the star, it gets lighter. Maybe soften some of those liquid lines right there where I had some puddles. Okay, so now all that really remains is I need to let this dry, and then I'll take a picture of it to be like, well, I don't know. I might do these other 3 paintings too, but I'm pretty happy with the way this one has come out. And, I mean, obviously, the shepherds are not going to be actually orange, and the wise men are not going to be this orange, but that's kind of the warm color that I want to have laid in, that their colors are going to have to react to. And really, I think I'm happy with it. Let me get this back up fully in frame. So, I think I might go ahead and skip these other 3 and get to work sketching on the actual nativity painting. So I can sketch all of this out, and then get that scanned in. So there's a sketch on my Patreon when that's done. And then we will start the painting. The big painting. It's going to be 18 inches by 24 inches. And instead of using this, I will probably use this Daler Rowney liquid watercolor that I've got, that my wife had picked up for me, along with this plastic palette that I've got with all these little sections in it, so I can have my colors or my mixing. And and since it's white, I'll be able to see what I've got for sure, where the lid on the Crayola set, let me pick this up here and make sure you can see it. So I was mixing in these little sections in the lid, but because they were clear, I would get, you know, like, not necessarily the clearest representation of the color I was using, because I was seeing through my glass tabletop onto it. But anyway, yeah, that's going to be the end of this video, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.